Hello, everyone. Kevin Gosztola here. I'm with the Dissenter newsletter, and I apologize for starting late. I was following the live action that is unfolding, and it's not in front of the Israeli Consulate in Chicago anymore, but it is. Oh, wait, I'm going to pause. I don't think the stream had started before I launched in, and that's my fault. Welcome to the live stream. I'm the editor of the Dissenter newsletter. My name is Kevin Gosztola. Welcome to the channel. If you haven't been here, I'm starting several minutes later than I planned because there were some arrests happening. There was an arrest of a member of the press, or at least a detention. I'm not sure if that person was released at the moment. It was a video journalist from New York. She was wearing goggles. This was captured by Status Quo's John Farina, who's on the ground, and so I was following this action, and it seems like the police have taken the approach of arresting all of these protesters. There were about 50 of them that were down there to hold this demonstration outside of the Israeli consulate. But as the protest was unfolding, they were very hostile and aggressive towards both especially to the press, but they really were not about to give the protesters any opportunity to stand outside and demonstrate. But before I go forward, just thank you for joining. Take a moment, subscribe to the Dissenter newsletter if you can, because I'll be going over what I observed and piecing this together. The hostility that was shown towards all of these protesters, and I'm getting some updates, so I apologize for the distraction. And this was one of the hardest actions for press to cover this week. This is the kind of thing that I was afraid that the Chicago police would do, and because of the nature of the group that called for this action, because Behind Enemy Lines is not a group that is familiar to Chicago. It's not of the movement for March on DNC 2024 that organized this, and they had the march yesterday. They had over 200 organizations organized for this demonstration, and they marched to the DNC, and then they had marched to a park that was off, barely within sight and sound of the United Center, but enough that the judge felt it satisfied the law. And then we saw a breach of the security fence. There were some people from Behind Enemy Lines that you can see. They were wearing shirts that removed part of this fencing. And about the time that the major protest of over 200 organizations left and headed back towards Union Park, where the rally was held, where you had all these speakers making profound and strong statements about the need for the Democratic Party to stop arming Israel, to stop fueling the genocidal violence in Gaza that has left over 40,000 people dead and also killed over 125 journalists at this point, among other aspects of the destruction. And so I'm going to show some video of this, and all credit goes to John Farina and Status Quo. And then there's other clips that I've seen, but this is easiest for me to go pull. And I'll just work my way backwards here. But welcome to the stream. I would like to address this, though, before I go forward. I am not streaming this on X. Also, I'm not streaming this on X anymore because Elon Musk took away the ability of people to stream to Twitter. I'm going to call it Twitter because since I'm going to dead name his site because that's what Elon Musk does. Uh, Twitter is no longer allowing people, unless they have paid for premium services, to stream on Twitter. It was a way that was useful for me to have people discover what I was doing, but now I'm confined to YouTube and Facebook. And so maybe I haven't decided for sure yet. Maybe I will join some of my other colleagues in paying Elon Musk for the usage of streaming to Twitter, but I'm not sure yet because I thoroughly detest this person. Just in the last 24 hours, we've seen Bassem Youssef lose his account to Twitter. So no, I'm not streaming. I am here on YouTube. There will be a video I will share with people I've been posting to my Substack. Some of this now has an actual relevance to the focus of the Dissenter newsletter, so I probably will take some of this and put it there. But okay, so let's show some of what was going on here on the ground here. I'm going to present some of this. I don't own any of this footage. This is credited to Status Coup, and I'm just going to go to about the point that I was following, where so here you can see what happens.
We have to get over the river. We are all going to the train together.
Let us go!
Don't answer that!
They'll arrest whoever's in charge! Let us go!
Let us go! Let us go!
We want to take a left, dumbass! Three times!
Here, tell me.
We're going over there to the Dixie.
So let me just say, he wants to talk to you. Go ahead and talk to him. Talk right here. Okay. Let it go. Let it go. Quit. Let it go.
Yeah, let it go, man. Come on.
What do you want to do tonight?
We're going. We are leaving. We are leaving. You have to go that way. And leave. My constitutional rights as an American. With your glasses, you know what you're supposed to. Let us go. You don't have the fucking numbers to do shit. Come on, we're fucking going home. You guys are.
Okay, so just to break in here and give some context, at this point, they had been doing this for probably an hour and a half. And at that point, it's clear the police don't want them marching through the city during the evening hours, and they don't trust all of these people there for the most part. I'm not passing judgment on tactics here. I'm just objectively describing what they presented themselves as to the cops. They were more masked up than the people who marched yesterday. They were wearing coverings over their heads as well. They some of them were wearing goggles or kind of like sunglasses so you couldn't see their eyes. They were, they walked in, there was about 50 or so of them, and then maybe they grew to about 100 or so. There weren't a lot of demonstrators. And so they had the cops decided to basically push them into the middle of the street where they held a demonstration. But then they wanted to march. And as they took off marching, the police made it impossible for them to move anywhere on the streets. And then when they made it impossible to move anywhere on the streets, they pushed them to the sidewalk. And when they pushed them to the sidewalk, then they also started to stop these, and it's mostly a younger group, probably college age, college age, maybe a little older. But that person there who's yelling at the police now is basically saying, look, you dissolved our protest. You made it impossible for us to go anywhere. They sucked the life out of this, which I think is deliberate. The police wanted this to go nowhere. Then they are trying to leave or at least walk on the sidewalk. He seems to be saying at this point, it's not worth it anymore. We don't have the numbers. He's fed up. This is part of the thing of them not really having the trust of movement organizations in Chicago or going at this the way that they did, is like, we're going to do our own thing. Now they don't have people who can back them up as they're faced with the policing, that is the police response to the DNC. And you can see in there is a Secret Service person. I've not seen that before, but good on John Farina to be there. And as I'm talking about this, give to Status Coup tonight. If you are not, do not donate to me. If at any point any of you are like, this is something, I appreciate you digging through some of the footage of what took place outside. Go find Status Coup on YouTube and donate to them. John Farina particularly has done, he did 6 hours of live streaming yesterday. He's now done 2 hours, and has been there and captured what, as I move forward, is the arrests here. So let me play this.
Nobody wants to make arrests. We're trying to accommodate you, get you home. But you guys keep walking around without a permit. What you're doing you go like that at your man. Let's go. DNC, go home. We'll bring the war home. Yo, stay tight! Stay tight!
Do not let us go home! We told them we're trying to go to the Quincy Brown line stop. I'm telling you, we are trying to get people home, and they're not letting us. They're telling us they're going to arrest people. What the fuck is wrong with them?
Right, so the Quincy Brown line stop is the public transit in Chicago. That's where people, they hop on so that they can get around. And the problem is this group is marching together and continuing to protest. The police don't think that they are going to go home. I don't know if they are or not, but they should have the police should have tried to facilitate some kind of a march, even though it's unpermitted, because it's very common during special national security events to do that, and the police never did.
Listen, we gave you an option, some options. Nobody wants to. You can voluntarily comply to cease, or what do you would like to do? Media, you got to get out of the way. Media,
all right, so now the media have been threatened with arrest. You've got white shirts, you've got captains, and now you've got riot cops moving in.
Hey, hold on, bikes, let the media out that way.
Bikes let the media out. So oftentimes this evening, media were pinned in, pushed and shoved, very unclear orders. Here, I'll stop. Thank you. That is a fair concern that I'm talking over a loud feed. And if I'm talking and it is of value to anybody, I should probably pause it and give you what I'm saying. So, what I was trying to say is that the cops are ordering media to get out because they'll be arrested if they don't move there. There's not a good vantage point for media to observe what is going to take place here. They've given a lot of unclear directions to media, and what I object to, having observed this and from the standpoint of freedom of the press, is where are reporters supposed to go so that they can cover the news? What happened has been covered in the press, and actually it was hyped by CNN for what it's worth. Jake Tapper referred to it during an interview with JB Pritzker. So they referred to this group, Behind Enemy Lines. So that Behind Enemy Lines, whatever this group is, that they were going to be at the Israeli Consulate. There were more press, more cops, all kinds of people there. And so the police moved in. They said they're not going to, facilitate whatever the protesters want. I said I don't think the police believe that they were going to go home. The media stepped back. He said that the bikes need to move. Let the media through. The media were penned in by the bicycle cops. You can't really see from that angle, but John Farina of Status Quo's trying to get a good angle, does get a good angle of what takes place. Now I'll shut up and let the rest of this play.
Are you media? Media can go.
Wait, move! Move!
Hey, off the street! Off the street!
Off the street! Go that way! No! Out of the way!
All right, so they have kicked all the media away. They are going to start brutalizing the protesters. That's why they wanted the media out, so they could do what they want without any evidence.
Do not resist. Put your hands behind you. Do not resist. Stop resisting. Stop resisting. I'm not. Put your hands behind you. I'm not.
I just want to point out what's going on here. It has nothing to do with freedom of the press. It has to do with the freedom to assemble and speak your mind and not be harassed by cops. Those police right there, what they're doing is a very common tactic for the body cameras and for the cameras. You see the captain that has his phone out. They are videoing from all types of directions. Earlier in this, there are journalists that captured a kind of panopticon that was set up. There were police that were up in higher positions shooting downward. There were people who were, they had cops on the ground. So now in this instance, as the night is coming to an end for this demonstration that wasn't ever really to develop into a free demonstration, I would say. They have someone on the ground. They are instructing, do not resist, do not resist. I promise that that person is not doing anything to resist, but they're setting that person up for charges. They're setting that person up for a criminal record, even though all that person did was come down tonight to take advantage of the world stage created by the Democratic Party and media to speak about what is going on in Gaza, to express frustration, the alienation, the disaffection that younger people feel in this country. And those police are going to pat themselves on the back tomorrow and say they did a good job, but this is not a good job, in my opinion. What they are doing is, at this very moment, as captured by John Farina of Status Quo. I don't own this footage. All credit to them. Donate to Status Quo if you appreciate my commentary. I would not be able to do it without this clear live stream footage. What they are doing there is a common tactic to set people up with charges. They're giving the narration to make it seem like at some point they were struggling. And then, if he gets frustrated, I'm not struggling, I'm not resisting, and then does get flustered, and perhaps that's really when, they might start to have trouble with him. So it's kind of an incitement as well, that you can feel inside of you as they have their knees on you, they have their arms on you, and video from all directions. That everyone's watching you with your face in the concrete there. So I just had to point that out.
Just listen.
Sorry about my bad. I'm going to after you.
Hey, I need that. Hey, guys.
Okay, so I'm going to move forward, and then we can see.
Just stay quiet.
All right, a photojournalist from New York has been arrested. They have arrested press.
Destroy Hamas and their terrorist supporters. What's your birthday? April 16th.
Okay, so that's the scene. That's the scene that unfolded there. Let me backtrack to earlier today. There wasn't a whole lot that was going on. There was in the morning, there was a brunch. I saw a clip of Code Pink, and they disrupted the. I'll go ahead and pull this up so you can see. There was at Wrigley Field, there was an event. This is where the Chicago Cubs play. They stepped out, and there were Democrats in attendance. We can watch this clip. This is a kind of righteous, direct action that Code Pink is known for engaging in. So let me put that up here for you to see here. This comes from Code Pink.
Chicago has the genocide happening, and your Congress people are taking money from Zionist lobbies. They're enabling a genocide. They are enabling an ethnic cleansing on the Palestinian people. Chicago has the largest Palestinian community in the
We were just inside the brunch at Wrigley Field. Durbin, Schakowsky, Duckworth, and Quigley were all there. We disrupted on the field. There were a bunch of folks from Chicago there representing and supporting the representatives and senators. And we brought our messaging that we cannot be bought by AIPAC, unlike Duckworth, unlike Durbin, unlike Schakowsky. Unlike Quigley, they take millions of dollars from AIPAC to get reelected every single year, which not only enables a genocide and ethnic cleansing in Palestine, but also enables the harm and the murder of Palestinians here in Chicago, the largest Palestinian community in the United States, who they're supposed to represent. And we brought our messaging inside, just as we have it here outside as well, during the DNC here in Chicago.
Okay, so that was the Code Pink, and there were other disruptions today. They were at, but I'll just play that one. But there was, Medea was at something with Tim Walz, and there was an Axios event, which, Axios is basically like the pink slime of news media, just printing out whatever their sources drool on them, and then they put it out on the website. I read from an Axios post in a previous update because it was hilarious that this was being printed about the violence they thought that was going to take place during the DNC and how scared they were to move around outside the convention. But there was they did an action at the Women's Caucus, the Tim Walz Women's Caucus speech. They disrupted. Medea was personally there, and then they actually got to confront Mike Quigley, who is a representative from the state of Illinois, congressperson. They saw him outside of Wrigley Field. So there's good direct actions by Code Pink, which is what they are known for. And then I'm going to start winding this down. I wanted to give more space to the uncommitted movement inside of the DNC. So let me just show you if you haven't seen it already, the Stop Arming Israel banner that was unfurled yesterday inside of the. This was inside of the convention. It was well, here, I found a clip. So I'll show you this. This is from the first night of the DNC. This is Lauren Steiner is someone who has a podcast, does a show. She's a progressive. And then also, I think there was an uncommitted delegate. Her name is, I think, Nadia Ahmed. I believe I've got that correct. Anyways, they were inside. They unfurled a banner here. And you can see Joe Biden was talking, and then there it is.
I wasn't looking in the past. I was looking in the future. I spoke with the work at hand. What we have to eat. What as I told you then? The future of fair possibility.
Everybody sign up, please. Thank you.
We're in the grip of once in a century pandemic.
Section 108. Stop.
We have a
Okay, so that scene there is that's a good flavor for what happened. The banner was unfurled. All these delegates, these Democrat delegates, were insecure. A couple of these white men start beating or hitting. I guess beating is a little bit too strong there, but hitting um, these people over the head. That they were holding the banner. One of them was a Muslim woman, and then you see the raising of the "We Love Joe" signs. Who makes "We Love Joe" signs like that? Anyways, raising and then chanting "We Love Joe," and very insecure, very troubled, very like, oh, we can't let Republicans see this. They'll think we're divided. Very, very children, very, very much like children who, don't understand that this is a part of democracy. Those people there are delegates, as you heard at the end of the clip. I think they were instructing the person who was videoing this that they needed to leave the section. But the people there seated are um, are in fact delegates. They have a voice. They should have a voice. And in fact, there's a letter that these uncommitted delegates, along with Harris delegates, are signing on to demand an arms embargo. There's a group that's collecting hundreds, building and growing this letter to try and have some kind of statement made about what the Democratic Party platform represents and how it is, fully signing on to the war crimes, the constant atrocities that are being committed by U.S. weapons that Israel has. I'll go ahead and field this question since you're asking here. What are my thoughts behind the uncommitted folks voting the couch versus going third party like the Greens? I empathize with them voting the couch, but I think they could help break the duopoly. So I'm not here to articulate what's right or wrong. My position is that I don't engage in vote shaming. I'm not here to tell people to vote any certain way. But let's just say tactically here that if they were only going to go third party and vote for the Greens and they hadn't tried to win uncommitted delegates in the Democratic primary, which wasn't really a primary, it was designed to make it seem like the population wanted, the Democratic base wanted Joe Biden to be the president for another 4 years. Let's just say if they had not challenged Joe Biden, he would probably still be the nominee, possibly. Certainly, all of the protesting and from within the Democratic Party base hampered and weakened Joe Biden as a candidate to the point where the powers that be decided. And then there was the scene where he just short circuited and could not debate Donald Trump. And that was embarrassing on its own. But keep in mind that the people behind closed doors who were in high positions knew for a year and a half, at least, if not longer, that Joe Biden was declining, his cognitive decline, that he had physical health problems, that age had caught up with him. As a big believer in the apartheid project in Israel, he was no longer serving its use anymore because he was having trouble, but still they were willing to stick with him because they didn't think of an alternative. And so those people, I think, played a part in pushing out the guy that is now known as Genocide Joe. And the reason why Harris Walz is the ticket, that's because of these uncommitted delegates, at least partly, not entirely, but at least partly. The Greens are frequently in disarray, and I wish they were more organized. I wish they could provide more of an alternative for people to support. I have nothing but I have nothing negative to say about Jill Stein. I'm not here to attack people, but then there's Cornel West, and there's a lot of infighting and squabbling between the two candidates this time around, and it doesn't help the left counter the two-party system. So honestly, every 4 years we have this same conversation, and I've done this for at least 4 cycles now. I'm old enough to say that I've had the discussion about lesser of two evils for 4 cycles and considered it. I don't consider Ralph Nader someone who's responsible for the Iraq war like Democrats. I don't loathe somebody who runs an independent campaign and wants to provide people an option beyond sitting on the couch. If people want to engage in electoralism and support someone, I see nothing wrong with that. But I also think that it's entirely valid for people who found a way to be in the convention as uncommitted delegates to unfurl banners and protest and hold press conferences and challenge Democratic Party politicians and force them to recognize that what they're doing should be listened to, that what they're saying does matter, that the people out there are angry. I mean, a vast majority of the Democratic Party's base, the people who are going to vote for this ticket, demand and want an end to the bombing of Gaza. And yet, even today, yesterday, more images of children being massacred, more news about how Prime Minister Netanyahu is not going to support an end to the war, and then more obfuscation, deflection, and lies from Democrats about what Harris and Biden and Antony Blinken and others are doing to bring all of these atrocities to an end so that they don't continue to happen, so they don't repeat. And I think, I personally am happy to see people on the inside. And I know that paired with the marches outside from the Palestinian community, where Chicago has the most massive Palestinian population, the highest concentration of any place in the country, that together is making it impossible for Democrats to ignore what is the truth, what is the reality of their policies. And it's in the platform. In the platform, they are co-signing everything that's happened in the last 4 years and saying they'll continue it for 4 more years. So that is why people should be angry and why they have to speak up. And so I hope that addresses your question somewhat. But I was able to show the Stop Arming Israel banner. The people who did the banner unfurling were on Democracy Now! Tune into that. So I want to just take a quick scroll here through the list of independent media reporters that are on the ground. They did a mass arrest. So I'm going to just kind of very quickly go through some of the things that are being posted at this hour about this event that has been made memorable by the actions of police. I think it would have been insignificant. I think this little group of 50 or so people would have gone home after finding that they didn't have people there to support their protest at the consulate, that they handed flyers out to people in the park yesterday. They handed them out to 1,000 or more people. I don't know how many flyers they had, but they handed out leaflets and tried to get people to come. And I got one, but I didn't go. I wasn't interested in this because of some of what I had read about this group behind enemy lines and the reputation that some of the individuals had and how they were coming off to fellow organizers. At the same time, I was concerned because of what they were doing, that it would be unsafe for them and also unsafe for the press to be there. my concerns and fears were confirmed by the way that the police handled themselves. They were not restrained. They did not handle themselves professionally. I would object to anybody who said that this is how they had to police these people, because they had already protected the consulate. They had cordoned it off and prevented them from getting close to, break windows or vandalize it. So they were in the street. They were trying to have a kind of a rally, but they were a small group. They don't have a stage. And then they tried to take off for a march, which is what you do. And I've been to conventions, and I've seen that a lot of times the police will just choose to accommodate these people. It doesn't seem like the group knew where they wanted to go. And then when some officer, and I'm not saying this excuses the way they were treated, but when a captain tried to ask someone, all right, what would you like to do? What are your plans? They did not know what it was they wanted to do. And so then they ended up being pushed onto the sidewalk. They ended up being penned in. They eventually were dispersed, and there was a mass arrest. So let's go through here some of the latest that we have from the scene. So here, this is rapping. They're outside. This is a video from Madison Swart that I can show you.
Back up! Back up! Back up! Back up! Back up! Fuck you! Fuck you! Are you grabbing me? Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fucking pigs!
So we heard some of that earlier. I played some of that earlier just so you can place it in the timeline. I want to go back further. So we've got press detained. We've got it was so here this is images here of a press detention. I'll go ahead and put this up here for people to watch.
Can I ask what you're going to be charging people tonight?
Let me.
What are you going to charge the press with tonight?
Trapped over with the other protesters on that corner, being ordered to move with press. I started moving with them. That white shirt grabbed me.
Can I ask you a question, Lieutenant?
Limited, yes.
So you arrested a credentialed member of the press.
Okay, we're figuring everything out right now. So thank you.
Can I ask what you're going to be charging people tonight?
Okay, so there's a clip of Talia Jane. Follow, support Talia Jane, another independent media reporter here in Chicago right now, asking that lieutenant, sort of like, hey, do you know that a credentialed press has been arrested? And what do you plan to charge them with? What do you say that they did? He seems to think that they're not going to take that person away if they really are credentialed press, or like, okay, I mean, if you say so, I suppose we're arresting someone. But then it's like we're sorting it out. So they've taken people off and detained them, and then they're going to try to figure out who's worth putting in vans and taking to the mass arrest location. There is a mass arrest location in Chicago where they're moving people when they're taken, by the dozens on buses. They have these police vans that load everyone up and they take them over to be processed. So, good clip there by Talia Jane, who's had her run-ins with police as a member of the press as well. This is, and then this is, it's Josh Pacheco, Chicanx photojournalist. More of this. This one comes from, what I'm going to show here is from Sean Beckner Carr Mitchell, and it's another independent media reporter that is there. This is there they are. They're arresting press. They're arresting press who were there, trying to cover what this was. And then, as it developed into a police riot, they were they were caught up in this. They're being arrested because they were trying to do their job. They're sorting through this. He's checking everything. And then, the press are going over there and trying to see what's happening because they care about their colleagues, and the police don't want them nearby, showing that they are arresting a member of the press, So, um, as I scroll through, it's Talia Jane was there. There's a reporter for Jinx Press, and they did arrest credentialed press, and then they put up this yellow tape. This is Jinx Press showing what they do here. As you're expressing concern about the media that have been shuffled off, what they do is they keep you so far away that you can't really tell who and what is being arrested. It makes it hard to sort it out, but that there are people you worked alongside with on this protest that are being detained or arrested, and they shouldn't be. They shouldn't have been interfered with, and it's the fault of police that it got this bad. Um, let me shout out another person who was there, um, uh, Mel Boer, who was there to um, cover the way that this developed into riot and to capture. There were several clips that were posted that were of value to me in following along how this developed. I think at one point the My Pillow CEO showed up to basically be the attention whore that Mike Lindell is, and then Mel captured some good stuff here while they were on the ground. And let's see here. I'll play this and then I'll conclude. So this shows you an earlier confrontation. This is Mel Boer of the Real News Network. Support the Real News Network, support Status Quo, support these independent media that are out there live streaming. I don't feel I'm equipped to do this kind of work. I do a different type of journalism, and you're here and you support that. This is valuable right now in this moment to have some people out there that can live stream. So you see, earlier confrontation before the one I gave a lot of attention earlier in this broadcast.
Back up.
Yeah, so from the beginning, as Mel captures there, they were shoving the press. Move where? Where do you want people to move? Where are they supposed to go? Where do you want people to go? What's your plan for this? So here's why this was so ugly. It's the nature of the group. I'm going to play this group. I'm going to play this and then I'm going to end the broadcast. So there was an interview that Jake Tapper did on Sunday. And here is what he said to Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker.
There was the 96 convention in Chicago. Obviously, another one that looms large is the 68 convention here in Chicago, was overshadowed by violent clashes between police and protesters, then protesting the Vietnam War. This time, thousands of anti-Israel protesters are expected to descend on the city. How worried are you about them disrupting the actual convention, including the uncommitted delegates inside the convention hall?
Well, I know reporters like to harken back to 68 because, you know, there's a lot of good footage you get to point to.
We also harken back to 96.
You did. You got the Macarena in there. But the fact is, it's a whole different ball game. Here we are, you know, 56 years later. We've got a very, very different situation in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party, honestly, has coalesced around this candidate. That was not the case in 1968. We've got policing is all different now, and we've got technology at work, and really the protesters are protesting something that is very far away from here, very important, but it's not about people getting drafted from here going abroad. So it's a whole different situation. And honestly, I expect that we're going to have peaceful protests. We're going to protect the protesters, but also protect all the people visiting, 50,000 people coming to Chicago, and the residents of Chicago. So the plan's been in place for a year and a quarter now already. We're going to execute on that plan the next 4 days.
Certainly most of the protesters, I'm sure, intend to be peaceful, but there are some groups that are making it clear they do not want to be peaceful. There's one called Behind Enemy Lines, for example,
yes.
A leftist anti-imperialist protest group calling on its supporters to shut down the DNC, urging them to make bruises from Chicago police batons, the 2024 back-to-school fall fashion. You guys prepared for that?
If there are troublemakers, they're going to get arrested and they're going to get convicted. But the fact is that the vast majority of people who are protesting, and we've seen this before, are, you know, peaceful protesters. They want to have their voices heard. They're going to be heard, no doubt about it. And we're going to protect that.
So, as you can hear there, the police had taken this seriously. The media hyped it. Jake Tapper knows absolutely nothing about the orientation, the people within Behind Enemy Lines, hasn't talked to a single person about their planned protest. It caught the attention of Jake that they were so bombastic and said that they are looking forward to being hit by batons. They want to have another 1968 type scene outside the convention. Which is kind of a dumb thing. That's not useful to anyone organizing for social justice. But rather than just let these younger people fail to organize a protest, rather than let them naively walk up to the consulate, find, okay, you don't have the movement support, you don't have the community in Chicago's support. All right, go home. Thanks for trying. Learn from your mistakes. Continue to grow. If your discontent and heart is in the right place and you understand the issues and you want to contribute, find some way to plug in instead of letting them fail and go home. The police immediately created a hostile setting. They aggressively moved in on them. They penned them in. They pushed the press. They pushed the press against protesters. They had press and protesters falling over each other. They made it unsafe, not only for press and protesters, but it's possible that the cops got hurt, some of them too, pushing and shoving each other. But I don't really want to hear about their scrapes and bruises. And then as the night wore on, after they let them let off some steam in the middle of the street, when a march started, they were not willing to let that march continue because in the end, they wanted to see those people from Behind Enemy Lines get arrested and taken to the police station. Now, I believe that that was a targeted decision, that they, really set them up to be angry, to not get what they wanted, which was a kind of demonstration where they would have space to speak themselves without having police leering over them so closely and interfering with their right to speak. And then once the scene set off and there was they were moving in and tackling people. Once that happened and then they cleared everyone away, they moved the press as far away so you couldn't observe how they were handling these protesters. At that point, it was over, and the police could say they won. And I think they really didn't want to have any tolerance for this group of people at all. And that's why we're seeing press arrested as well, because there was less tolerance for the press being around to see what the police did. This is the opposite from what happened yesterday. This is not like what the police chief Snelling said police would do. This was not how they were trained, I don't think. I don't believe that this is how police were trained. I believe they looked at speech that was written on websites, any social media that Behind Enemy Lines was doing, the flyering that they probably had some of these organizers under surveillance. I don't know the identities of all the people who put this together. But then they basically showed that if you are going to be combative in your tone, that they'll take you out. And then you'll be loaded on vans and you'll be in need of the National Lawyers Guild to help you get out of trouble. And then now you might actually deal with a situation where you are charged with a crime during the DNC. And that's sad. So thank you all for tuning in and listening to this. I didn't plan to go for the full hour, but this developed into something much bigger than it was going to be. And you all are smart enough to know that that is the cops who did it. It's not these younger people. They didn't know what they were doing. These were amateurs. These are not people who go to the city hall, they get a permit, they have a march, they bring in 100+ organizations. They have speakers. They link in with parts of labor, immigrant groups. They have solidarity. No, this was a little group of people that said the world is a stage. The world is watching. We want to go out there and want to have a kind of free speech. We want to talk and show everyone that we're here, and that's fine. And I think that's absolutely okay. It's just that the way that they went about it, the police just looked at it right away. It was bait, and the police decided that they were going to attack these people. So thank you for being here tonight. I understand that inside the DNC, Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, drone commander-in-chief, is coming to speak very soon. So, maybe you want to go follow that and remind yourselves why it's good to no longer be living under the Obama administration. I certainly always covered the Obama administration with an eye towards the attacks on the press, the attacks on whistleblowers, the decriminalization of torture, the way in which wars were perpetuated that George W. Bush started, the way in which war crimes were allowed, people were not prosecuted and held accountable, the way international law was not upheld. Of course, all of this continues with Trump and Biden. But we really thought in 2008 that there was a chance that we could turn a new direction and break from the Bush-Cheney administration. And then Barack Obama did not, and there was the bailing out of Wall Street fraudsters, the banksters, the people who committed exploitation, who had people take out mortgages. They sold them mortgages that ended up basically being a kind of death sentence for that, or not a death sentence, but it was highly exploitive. I mean, many of these people didn't have the funds to pay these mortgages. We had the economic collapse. There's a whole record he has of environmental degradation, unjust environmental policies, not really being serious about fighting climate disruption, and allowing the ramping up of fossil fuel production, so on and so forth. But people are going to be there watching Barack Obama speak. So thank you for tuning in. I'll be around tomorrow to give an update at the maybe at the end of the day. Tomorrow there's activity in the evening, a big giant Palestinian march from the community. I want to follow that. Hope it doesn't end this way. But I'll check in with all of you after that march. Until then, I'll see you in the streets.